Hi everyone. Welcome to the SIGUCCS webinar on the importance of enterprise-wide clicker support. My name is Beth Rugg and I'll be the facilitator today. I'm very pleased to introduce Nargas Oskui. Nargas has been at Oregon State University for just over a year now as their instructional technologist working within academic technology. She's the product owner and the team supervisor for clicker service. Interestingly enough, Nargas is actually working from home today because their institution is closed due to a major weather storm. So we really appreciate Nargas and you all being with us. Before we get going, I just want to make sure everyone understands that by default you are muted, and that helps us block out kind of background noise and white noise. But if you want to go ahead and say hi, send me a question. I will be helping facilitate this webinar, so if you do have a question throughout the presentation, you'll just chat that into me, and I'll let Nargas know. So can everybody just send me a quick chat and say hi? Great, thank you. All righty, well with that, Nargas, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Beth, and hello everyone. It's great to be here despite the closure, and it's a beautiful white snow out there. It's a site that Corvallis and the Eugene area in Oregon, the western part of Oregon, doesn't get much. So I'm happy to be here, and I'd like to talk about how Oregon State University's enterprise-wide, it's not really enterprise-wide, it's centrally supported, but I'll talk about the importance of that for clicker support. So as I advance my slide, so the agenda today, and in no order is listed, we'll be going over the assessment criteria, end user experience, the concerns and compatibility of the specific product we chose, our implementation strategy, the relations we had with a specific vendor, the various pain points, and the future of the technology and the pedagogical implications. So like I said, these are the different topics that I'll be sharing, but in no complete order is listed here. So Oregon State was founded in 1868, and it's one of the two institutions in the U.S. that have all four designations, sea, space, sun, and land grant. And currently we have a total of 95,000 students overall, and that includes the students online through our eCampus service and the different extension services in the different campus across the state. So response systems altogether, they were developed in the 1960s, and Oregon State University has been using them for about 15 years. So they've been around for quite a bit. And OSU is unique to the central support model. There's other comparator institutions like University of Oregon, Arizona State University, and University of Arkansas where there are different flavors being used. So all these institutions that I've listed, they have a central support model, but there are also other types of response systems that are being used in different departments amongst different faculty. So because of the centrally support nature, and also I just wanted to mention that if there's any questions, please feel free to chat them in to Beth. I've pretty much closed the view of GoToWebinar, so I can't really see what's going on there. Please feel free to interject anytime, and towards the end of the presentation, I will share the assessment matrix and the actual report and take any questions along the lines of how we conducted our assessment and what is specific to OSU and how that report can be transferred and repurposed for your institution. So given the centrality of our support, and the difference with enterprise-wide versus central support is that it is ground up, and I'll talk more about that in detail later on in the presentation. So because we have this model and we have a lot of adoption, students can go to the bookstore and they can purchase their clickers there. And that way the bookstore handles that, it's organized, they can keep track of that intake request, and faculty, when they put in their request for books at the beginning of the term, the clickers is also included in that bundle. So just for fall term of this year, fall 2016, 11,849 clickers were requested by faculty, and that actually might be a lower number reported given the existing faculty who do use it and who are pretty much understood that that's going to be part of their stock. And we have never received any concerns from the bookstore mentioning that there was a shortage. They've always had a supply, and the bookstore has a good rapport with the vendor. So currently over 20,000 students own clickers. The specific clickers are being the Turning Technology clickers that we have supported, and over the course of one entire academic year, 193 instructors use them. So on a term-by-term basis, it's roughly 80 or so, and that fluctuates based on what term. But the adoption that we've noticed, that we've kind of tracked, is fall term is when there's an overwhelming amount of faculty using clickers. So this assessment, even though it was conducted a few years ago, I feel that it is very relevant and can be applied to any upcoming assessment that we would like to do internally and for other institutions. So like I said, I'm going to share that towards the end. So this particular assessment that I'm referencing, I started at Oregon State in last December, exactly last December, and I was formerly at the University of Oregon where I supported their iClicker system. So I was part of the University of Oregon assessment, so kind of comparing the different institutions and what the faculty needs were and what was specific to what they needed and wanted. It was interesting to kind of see that comparison and what were the advantages and disadvantages just given the demographic. So that perspective really provided value to me in reviewing this assessment at OSU. So here 80 plus instructors were sampled from across the campus in different disciplines, and over 100 students that were using clickers in specific pilot courses were also assessed through survey methodology. And we also looked out to different kind of support units, the Center for Teaching and Learning and other units that were distributed across the kind of fractioned campus. Even though information services like their IT, Central IS, still different departments, they kind of had ownership for their support, their IT support. And then the peer institutions, as I mentioned, University of Oregon, Arizona State University. And still, at that time during the assessment, which kind of prompted this review, there were 7 response systems that were floating around. Qwizdom, iClicker, Turning Technologies, and other variants that were initially on the market, not one of like the top players, but the other kind of variants that faculty, they heard from the publishers, say Pearson's and other publisher content, had a similar like response system that was in the initial phases that was being piloted. And this is very frustrating for students because they're already complaining about the cost of textbooks, but in addition to that, it's a burden for them to have to invest in multiple systems, that there's no continuity across the curriculum, and if there's multiple physical devices, and at the time I don't recall, I think the mobile app or the app option was still in the stage of infancy. So that's a huge burden. It puts a lot of support load on the instructor and on the receiving end for the students. So overall, the consensus from all the stakeholders was to transition from the Qwizdom clicker system to Turning Technologies. So at Oregon State, the Qwizdom vendor was being used in 2006. So around that time frame, plus or minus a year or so, Qwizdom was being used. And in the report is 15 or 14 pages, and it goes over in detail what version of Qwizdom, why an assessment was put in place. Usually with various technologies, every 10 years there needs to be an assessment given that the technology might not meet the needs of the faculty, or it's shifted, or the vision from the institution has changed and there's been some top-down mandates or some implementation kind of shifting. So assessments are necessary across the board when it comes to evaluating different tools. And trends change overall. So after that transition from Qwizdom to Turning Technologies, the adoption is increased by 300+%. I mean, it was tremendous. And now we support over 100 teaching faculty who are teaching over 350 different sections, and including the extension stations. There's about a dozen extension stations across the state that are affiliated with Oregon State University. So we have placed 300 mini clickers that are part of the student media services at the library. So those are being circulated, and OSU community members can check them out for non-curricular purposes, and they're used a lot for conference presentations, research, conducting research that doesn't require, or research is different than the non-curricular. Non-curricular is more for the workshops and seminars, and kind of keep the audience engaged instead of kind of sharing a static PowerPoint. And I'll share more about the different uses that we have at OSU. And the data that I was able to collect from the library, given that their system didn't give me granular access, but at least we have 98 or so checkouts that were recorded for the past 4 years. So that's quite a lot. And like I said, the report was only sharing when it was reserved and checked out, but it didn't display how many clicker systems were being checked out. So one kit has 20 actual physical clickers, and the data, if it were to say that, multiple kits were checked out, that means 100 clickers were checked out. So the magnitude really wasn't presented here, but I'm sure that data can be sussed out later on. So as you're all aware, that's why you're listening in on this presentation, that clickers are used to check learner comprehension, to provide students with participation, to provide a kind of think, pair, share, active learning, stimulating discussions, solving math problems, to administer low-stakes assessments, and in some extent, given the tool's capability, you can administer an actual midterm exam, but of course that requires a lot of support. So at Oregon State, our workflow contains providing instructor training, scheduling class visits. We have a listserv where we send communications out on a term-lean weekly basis, given the beginning of the term, to orient faculty and provide them with refresher content and just let them know what the pulse is. And of course, student support, which entails having, which entails the student registration tables. So for the first 2 weeks, we first of all share a schedule where it's pretty much all hands on deck. We have registration tables in the lobby of our building, and that way this specific building that we're physically located, the academic technology is located in, is the Learning Innovation Center, which is a central hub of classroom space. So a lot of students congregate there, and the registration support tables, it's pretty much a spot where they can come from 10 to 5 p.m. and the hours that we post are kind of like a delineating support model. So the message we're sending out to them is the sooner you register, the better, and you'll get your grades. faster, and you're not going to lose points depending on how your instructor grades clicker participation in class. So we have a banner that's posted to attract their attention, and we noticed that having that hands-on support in an area that's open and available to students has been very effective. So we also use clickers for Faculty Senate, and that's been an interesting endeavor. I can talk more about that if you have any questions later. But it's been quite successful. Instead of having faculty raise their hands and for the recording of the votes to be manual, I mean, everything is immediate, it's fun, and the results, the reports are definitely available to share later on. And there's a lot of kind of technical issues that we've run into, but currently it's working perfectly. And we also use clickers for the START program. It is at the beginning of the year for new incoming students for orientation, advising, and registration. That's been very effective, and it's another way to communicate information to students, but also to assess if they have retained information regarding orientation-specific information about Oregon State University, and students have been receptive to that. So the BEST program is specifically for student athletes and the academic support around that. They've been used in the summer courses for incoming freshmen and incoming athletes that are freshmen, and to make them more familiar with using the clicker technology in kind of smaller dynamic courses in preparation for students who are going to be taking the large lecture classes that are 200 plus. So this way they kind of have an advantage, and providing that hands-on individualized support. So as I mentioned earlier, extracurricular use, extension services, and admissions. For recruiting, we have the admissions folks come over, and I've trained them on using the technology. So when they go out to either California or the state of Washington, there's another way to kind of perk the interest of students and give the students an advanced experience with the clicker technology, and letting them know, well, you're going to be using this when you come to OSU, and look how fun and engaging is this. And for assessments. So like I mentioned, the research aspect, using this form of technology as a tool, as an instrument to assess various audiences. It's been used in the Department of Transportation to assess safety of the various cones that are out in the road, and used for I think the Food Institute here at OSU for wine tasting. So the audience members that come for wine tasting, they have the wines displayed there, and then the individuals can press the button for which they like, which they didn't like, what were the flavors, and all of that is recorded. It's very convenient, no need to deal with paper, it's there, and it can be shared in a convenient fashion. There's so much applications that are being used that I'm amazed about, and I'm also not familiar with, that I haven't supported since I've been here for a year now. And another thing I wanted to mention with regards to assessment is the Department of Education and with the College of Education at OSU. They're taking it to the K through 12 schools around the state and using it for second language, dual language learning as well to administer these assessments. So with vendor research, there's this new research project that OSU has conducted. It's called the Geometry of Learning. So because the Learning Innovation Center has round rooms, we're trying to assess how do students retain information and how is their performance. So we use the clickers as the instrument to assess and track that throughout the term. And I can talk more about that later if there's interest. And gamification. So this technology has been used in various talk shows and the gamification aspect has been applied in the educational setting, and in addition for the summer programs for orientation to keep students engaged with the onslaught of content that's being presented to them, and it definitely helps with retention. And I wanted to add to that that in an actual course with regards to assessment, if instructor incorporates clicker questions that are that involve critical thinking and that are not conceptual and factual, then students perform better and retain the information overall through the course. So I use them for my workshops and trainings that I give on campus, and other departments use them, and this is the extracurricular aspect. One example that I'd like to share is the pesticide center here. They go out to different extension units across Oregon and present the content, and it's really taken away the confusion, and also it's perked interest amongst the extension staff, so it's been a huge success. So the end user experience with turning technologies in general and with clicker systems. So for students, what I'm sharing here is a report from the actual assessment that was conducted in 2011, and it has relevance currently as well. So students, they prefer a single, consistent, reliable solution, and affordability is major as well. So 2/3 of them prefer, have expressed that it definitely has improved their learning experience. It's made content more dynamic in class, and they are engaged. It's kind of fun for them. So for faculty, they don't really care about the brand as long as it's being supported, and it's easy to use, it's reliable, it's not going to require much troubleshooting on their end, and it's a tool that's robust, that meets their instructional needs. So the pretty much if there's a way for them to incorporate the technology in a sophisticated way that actually shows impact on learning, then they're happy with that. So with Turning Technologies, the specific vendor that we're working with, their system is flexible and complies with ADA policy, and it works with different systems, the different technology, the various platforms, Mac, PC. I haven't really worked with a user that was on Linux, but that's another conversation. And they have their tool, I would say, is by far robust compared to other tools that I have experienced. Very inclusive in the sense that it meets the needs of every student. So if there's a specific student that has a special need or has a specific learning style, there are options that can definitely reach them within the technology. So the integration with the learning management system allows for ease of grade management. So it connects right into the Canvas Grade Center, and faculty members, they can manipulate scores on either side, and there's ways for them to export it into an Excel spreadsheet or another format, into a printable report format to share, let's say, with the department head if need be. So the concern that we're currently facing is that some instructors, they don't allow students to use their phones during class, and they have varying policies. So the specific device also has an app equivalent. So if a student has a smart device, they can enable that app, and they don't have to pay $65 for the physical clicker, they just pay $15 for the license. So there has been conversation amongst leadership, and they want to do away with the physical devices, but they don't realize that each professor has their own course policy, And we really need to reach out to faculty, and it really comes down to their comfort, because if anything that's mandated and that's top down, there's going to be resistance. So we can sit down with them and share how to effectively use technologies in instruction in the classroom, providing active learning methods and assignments using the various tools instead, because students, they have other ways of getting distracted. If the instructor has a no smart device policy, then the student will disengage regardless if they don't feel like the faculty member really cares about teaching the right way. So the instructors, they use them to administer quizzes, and the other concern, if the devices were to be not supported, the physical devices, then there's no way that we can lock down the app if they're using their phone or their tablet. There's no way to really lock the browser down there within that system. It needs to be proctored in a lab environment for those high-stakes assessments in particular. So students definitely, they always find a way out, and they're pretty savvy with looking at other methods for getting what they want to do, getting what they want to get. So another kind of extraneous variable here, it doesn't happen that much, but the possibility is for a student to, another way to cheat the system is they decide that they don't want to physically attend class, and they can, through their app, log in and partake and answer questions if it's being pushed to their device, or if a classmate is sharing that content. So they'll be getting some participation points, but not all, and that kind of adds complication to the mix. Also, we still have different companies that are marketing to faculty, and we just need to be on the edge, and there's a lot of changes that are happening with various products, and the newer trends are presenting challenges for support. And faculty, they come to us with new tools, and they're wanting to adopt them because it sounds great, or it's flashy, or the way it's advertised is just really eye-catching, but they don't really realize incorporating an instruction, there's various layers involved, and they need to work closely with us, but since it's not supported centrally, we pretty much tell the instructor, you can use it at your own risk, we can't support you. So the vendor has to be responsible for providing that direct support for the faculty member, which can be frustrating for the students and themselves, and they end up just quitting halfway through the term. So with regards to compatibility, these are points from the assessment, and Turning Technologies has met those in all areas for us, is that it needs to be interoperable, and it needs to comply with our legal policy requirements at OSU. So the 508 compliance with accessibility, so the physical clickers for students who are blind, they have Braille on them, and they also vibrate based on the touch. So if you press certain buttons, that's an indicator for the student that they've responded in a certain way, so it meets those needs. And FERPA compliance, so with registrar's office, excuse me. I had to take a little drink there. Many registrars have a strict interpretation of FERPA, and how the data is being stored and shared, that's a concern. That's been established here. Excuse me. So with the LMS integration, it's essential. I wouldn't say necessary, I'm going to say essential, because when it was piloted and there wasn't that LTI, there's multiple session files that are outputted from the software, the clicker software, and it's pretty much a guessing game, and it attributes to error for faculty that are trying to mix and match the scores for the student that is listed in the clicker software versus whatever is listed in Banner, the student information SIS system, and the LMS. And when you have that lack of continuity, that contributes to error. Even if you want to, do it by hand, using a ruler manually, it's not efficient. So having something that's centrally supported improves security. And I mentioned earlier, Mac and PC, the integration supporting Shibboleth, CAS, or the Active Directory Federation services, which we currently have in place, and it's been tremendous. There's no confusion. You don't have to deal with multiple accounts. Let's say if a student creates their clicker account through the turning system using their non-university email, then that will not sync up with the student's performance in the LMS, and then they come to us complaining about them not getting their participation. So we have to kind of track down exactly where did that fail. And if there's ways to use a test management software, Respondus being one, there is methods to taking existing content and working from the LMS, exporting it out and prepping the questions to be clicker friendly, and vice versa, going in between applications. And of course the vendor has to test their software and do all of the user testing before they release the solution, and the patches have to be provided on a regular basis, because a lot of times with what we've experienced is we're pretty much the end user and tester for these vendor related tools, and that can add a lot of frustration to us. So the student registration process was a huge drain, and how am I doing with time, Beth, by the way?
It's 3:32. Well,
okay,
3:32 Eastern time here. So. Okay,
so I better. Okay, so I'm gonna breeze through this because there's other things that I wanted to share. So that's advertised. So with the single sign-on, which just became a part this fall, it's allowed for a smooth registration process with the least amount of complications, and now we can actually spend more time helping faculty to effectively use and create clicker questions. So that is what these are kind of going into the nitty-gritty, given that I don't have much time and I want to allow for questions. So we provide class visits and training to ensure that the implementation is smooth, and a ticketing system for distributed support, and pretty much basic support infrastructure, documentation resources, workshops on different learning strategies, and now we can definitely sit down and we're going to be creating webinars coming next term, winter term, for how to effectively use and incorporate the clicker questions in instruction. So we've had the ability to influence their product development, which has been great. So we're part of the process. We try to have bi-weekly meetings to ensure continuity. It doesn't really quite happen that much, but we're getting there. And earlier on, we did not adopt the newest device because we already had 2 other devices circulating on campus, and that really created confusion. We also wanted to send them a message because we were unhappy with their previous service that we're not going to buy in to the new remote that you have. So it's been part of the single sign-on and LTI integration. And if in the event that something catastrophic happens with the system, they send their technician over, but that hasn't happened for a few years because just this year they have wonderful leadership, which is a huge impact on adoption, and they have the customer success leader. So this is all great for the end users, for us who are administering the service. We're just very pleased with the progress in their support model. So the geometry of learning research I mentioned, they're a partner in our research using their tools. So here's some quotes for how faculty are really thrilled with our support. Students are happy because it provides them and the instructor real-time feedback, and they're just really pleased with the hands-on support that's being provided giving this technology. So Veterinary Medicine, they have an insular model where they're using polling everywhere. They've decided that works for their faculty, so we're okay with that. And then Top Hat is being used across campus in different disciplines, in computer science, and business, and geography. Once again, that has to do with those marketers. The sales reps go directly to the faculty and they sell their product, and they work closely with the faculty to make it work for them. And we like to be part of that conversation. We like to kind of sit in on those classes and learn about what is different with that technology that might add value to our existing process. Learning Catalytics is another tool, that I believe through Pearson's, and it provides interactive graphing options for students, and faculty who are wanting to adopt open access course content are heading in that direction. So with the eCar Student Technology Survey, there's about overall the survey results have presented that 98 students own a smart device. So we have to consider that in the trends. And with more campuses moving towards BYOD and cloud-based tools, it will definitely change the technological landscape. So faculty, it's desirable instructionally for students and faculty to be able to share content immediately, and there's the immediacy of the resources being pushed to the student's smart device, and then for them to be able to share their work up in the class. So with these newer competitors, that opportunity exists, and it becomes more dynamic. So I believe this is my last slide. No, this is my second to last slide, so I'll quickly go over this. So we have to consider that enrollments are increasing, and there has to be a positive way to influence student experience. With a system that's reliable, there are better ways to enhance teaching models and increase the valuation for clicker use as an instructional tool. With instructors teaching 50-minute classes or an hour and a half every other day, there's a lot of potential for keeping students engaged, disseminating the information in a way that learning is happening, and there is a great rapport with the student and the instructor. So the clickers have been exceptionally successful here at OSU, and because we work closely with the faculty, and there's different ways to add creativity and value to the process. So students are pretty serious about their learning as well. We have to give credit to them, and if they're part of the game, then it's a win-win. So this is my last slide, and so the part of the future of technology and pedagogy are the various flavors of clicker systems that are out there. There's a lot that's changing, and having it being dynamic and interoperable is where things are heading, and being able to incorporate open content and having built-in assessments is really where the game changer is. So we've understood that there has to be buy-in from upper administration in order to standardize the process, or else there's going to be other flavors out there, and then more fractioning of the tools. So currently at OSU we have in our system turning technology accounts are 187 instructor accounts and 22,207 students who have turning accounts. So it's not fair when there's different systems out there, and it's an overall cost for students and the campus, and still faculty are susceptible to competitor advertising. To reduce that divergence, as I mentioned earlier, we need to have an enterprise-wide system, and At OSU, it's not enterprise-wide yet because it's not a top-down mandate, or it's not supported from upper administration. It's pretty much from the ground up. Since we are academic technology, and this is my ending point, we're part of academic technology, and we help faculty with the different ecosystem of tools, learning management system being Canvas, Kaltura, the lecture capture system, response systems being Turning Technologies, and other publisher content, and plagiarism content as well. So when you have administration who, let's say, has supported Canvas as being the learning management system, there are instructors who don't use Canvas. That's fine, but as long as there's one system, there's not going to be another competitor coming in and saying, well, you should use Blackboard, or you should use Brightspace, or Sakai. It's already been established that Canvas is being supported. So in that vein, if Turning Technologies or whichever vendor is being supported by administration, then that will discontinue the constant kind of hassling from the different representatives, and there's consistency from the students' end, and they feel like the support model is solid. So I will end at that, and I'm opening it up for questions, and if anyone's interested, I can share the report, the assessment that took place a few years back, and other questions I'm open to answer. Thank you.
Nargas, thank you very much. I'm curious, I might have missed it at the very beginning, but how many FTE are supporting the clickers?
Right now, there are 187 faculty.
Well, for faculty, but how many support staff? Academic technology.
Support staff. Thank you. Yes, I glossed over that. So, so myself, so 1 FTE, then I have 4 students. I have 2 graduate students and 2 undergraduate students. So I'd have to say a solid 3 FTE combined.
Great,
Yep.
thank you. And do you find that that's fairly steady throughout the year, or is it pretty, rough at startup and then it's kind of?
It is rough. Yes, it's rough. It's rough at startup, then it kind of tapers off. And thank you. That's a solid question, Beth, and I wish I had addressed this in my presentation. But when you have varying models out there on campus, then that puts a bog down on the support, as well as a system that doesn't have that deep integration or the single sign-on capability. So we really pushed the vendor to establish that, and we were really spread pretty thin, and all of our work was dealing with registration issues. There's a lot of variances with OSU's account system, where they'd have multiple domains, and if a student registered with this domain, it didn't show that they received participation. So we had to suss out all of those issues, and that took away time from us to help faculty in incorporating the technology effectively in instruction. So now that majority of those registration issues have been resolved, we can have that dedicated time to assist faculty in the pedagogical aspect.
And I was just curious, early on you alluded to the Faculty Senate, and I believe perhaps a little story there. I'm intrigued by this idea that it's being used outside of the classroom, and wondering, I assume there was a problem that someone was trying to solve and they somehow came to you, and then the clickers were designed as the best solution?
So prior to me coming to OSU, we have a professor, he's also the director of the teaching effectiveness technology across the curriculum department, and he proposed clickers for Faculty Senate. So he was one of the senators, and they were kind of doing things pretty manually. So since he was supporting, he's the individual who I would have to say is a second support person, yeah. Recommended clickers, and then provided that support in having it be implemented smoothly at this time.
That's great. Sure, to have a faculty advocate makes complete sense.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
yes.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions out there in the audience?
Okay, so since there aren't any questions, I'm going to switch over to, let's see how I can do this. So here's the report. The report itself is 14 pages. It goes over the start of using Qwizdom and all the considerations and the justification, implications. So it's quite thorough, and that is on our website here. So we have Learn at Oregon State, and if you just Google clickers at Oregon State's website, you'll see all the support resources, and the clicker assessment is right here. So here we've listed the survey that's being used and all the different, it's pretty thorough. And I would recommend you check it out. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me offline as well. Here we have the matrix. So the matrix lists the different tools that we were evaluating. So with University of Oregon, the evaluation took place as well at University of Oregon way back when Qwizdom was being used, and the Qwizdom was Turning Technologies was being used, and then Qwizdom and iClicker were being evaluated. And the faculty who were part of the pilot evaluation recommended something that was simpler and pretty pared down. So Turning Technologies for University of Oregon was very complex, had a lot of bells and whistles, and it didn't really meet the faculty needs. So iClicker was recommended, and I believe U of O is still using iClicker, but the corollary was suggested at Oregon State. Different faculty, different departments, needs, constituents. So it's been interesting to kind of see the flip side and how what Turning Technologies leverages. So that's been eye-opening for me. And under the categories of evaluation, you can see as we scroll down that everything is listed, and it still applies even though the evaluation took place in 2011. You can see that the considerations for technically any technology listed here would blend well. So I'm going over very quickly.
Nargas, we do have one other question. How much do the clickers cost, and are the students expected to buy their own?
Yes. So I know there are other models out there that they have it, the department purchases a set and it's distributed, but it's a headache for faculty to have to manage that, and it shouldn't have to be the faculty to manage it. It should be part of the student toolkit. So the students do have to purchase them. At the model at OSU is they're being sold at the bookstore. They're $65 a piece, and with that you get the physical device and the license. The license itself costs $15, and they have different models, but the pricing model here is you buy them and it's an investment for the student. So if the argument that I've been trying to make is if it's enterprise-wide, then administration would either attribute this as a fee, part of the student tuition. The clicker is provided to the student in the orientation event. They have that clicker for the duration of their enrollment. It's a great investment for the student because it's being supported. They don't have to deal with switching out to another system halfway through their enrollment at OSU, and that's very effective, but once again there has to be that buy-in. And a lot of times with leadership, when we've noticed that when something's working, and it's working, if it's being supported departmentally from ground up, then why change it? Why fix it? Everything's solid. So it's kind of like a tango where if something fails, then they're going to hear about it, and we don't want it to fail because we're going to hear from faculty and they're going to be knocking on our door, and students as well. So we're trying to make it work, and then administration hears that everything's working smoothly, so there's no incentive for them to really enforce it that way. Yep.
Great, thank you. Well, let's see, Nargas, I think we're about out of time.
Okay.
Was there anything else you wanted to show?
I think I've shared all the different materials I wanted to present, and I'm available offline. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and I can share more about the geometry of learning research, the specific issues we had, the pain points we went through with transitioning from one system to another, and how we've handled that, and how still there are Qwizdom clickers that have been buried in different faculty offices that we've had to take on, and surplus, and how we went about surplusing that. And through the bookstore has been a great partner with us. They've taken on electronics, old turning technology, outdated systems, and they've surplus them, and they're being recycled and reused for parts. So it's great to have that full process where we can do away with outdated tools.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Nargas. We really do appreciate your time. For everybody listening, this has been recorded, and hopefully if the technology works, it'll be available within the next few days on the SIGUCCS website. And as Nargas alluded to, feel free to email her directly with any questions. But thank you, and thanks everyone for attending this SIGUCCS webinar.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.